Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are delving into a particularly tranquil corner of human history, one that asks us to imagine drifting along ancient coastlines, perhaps hearing the soft slap of waves against submerged rocks, feeling a faint, humid breeze rustling through distant mangroves. It's a journey into boring history for sleep, specifically, the gentle discoveries of Australia's early Aboriginal fishing traps. Now, let's be honest, we're not here for high-octane drama or edge-of-your-seat suspense. Quite the opposite, in fact. You probably won't survive this narrative awake, and that, my friends, is entirely the point. It's a subtle current, a quiet flow designed to lull your racing thoughts, much like the rhythmic tide these ancient wonders harnessed. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Seriously, no pressure. Also, let me know where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is for you. Share your sleepy slice of the world with us. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get going tonight. As you settle in, perhaps nestling deeper into your pillow, imagine for a moment the immense quiet of ancient Australia. We're talking tens of thousands of years ago, a time when the world truly hummed with an unfamiliar kind of stillness. A silence, punctuated only by the cries of unique birds, the whisper of wind through spinifex, or the distant thrum of thunder over the red earth. In your mind's eye, picture vast, untamed landscapes, stretching under an impossibly bright and crowded canvas of stars. So many stars you'd probably need to lie on your back just to see them all. This wasn't some empty wilderness waiting to be discovered. It was a land already alive with deep history, home to people who understood its rhythms and its bounty, in ways that modern society has barely begun to scratch the surface of. Tonight, our gentle drift takes us to the edges of this ancient land, specifically its coastlines and river systems, where remarkable ingenuity bloomed from the very fabric of existence. These weren't mere tools or simple technologies. They were vast, living structures, testament to a deep understanding of natural forces, hydrodynamics, and sustainable living, built not for conquest, but for sustenance. They are the Aboriginal fishing traps, and honestly, calling them traps feels almost reductive. It's like calling the Great Barrier Reef a puddle. They were sophisticated engineering feats, woven into the very fabric of the landscape, quietly collecting fish and shellfish with astonishing efficiency, millennium after millennium. If you've ever had to assemble a flat-pack wardrobe and felt utterly defeated by a single Allen key, just imagine designing and building something the size of several football fields, purely from local stone, that could feed entire communities for countless generations. It makes a misplaced sock seem like a minor inconvenience. One authoritative historical fact that gently nudges our sleepy narrative is that Aboriginal people have been present in Australia for at least 65,000 years, making them the oldest continuous culture on Earth. Just let that sink in for a moment. 65,000 years. Your family tree might stretch back a few hundred years, maybe 1,000 if you're feeling particularly ambitious after a few glasses of wine. But 65,000? That's so old. It makes dinosaurs feel like they just had their first coffee. It means generations upon generations, observing, learning, innovating, passing down knowledge with a meticulous care that beggars belief. And among their many remarkable innovations were these fish traps, some of which are thought to be over 6,000 years old, predating the pyramids of Egypt and Stonehenge by thousands of years. Just imagine, while the Egyptians were debating the optimal shape for a giant sand-collecting triangle, people on the other side of the world were perfecting aquatic real estate. Our aim isn't to shock you with explosive details, but rather to allow the gentle flow of information to wash over you, like a soothing tide receding from the shore, revealing pebbles and forgotten shells. We're examining these ancient structures not as isolated relics, but as intricate chapters in an unbroken story of human adaptation and ingenious connection with the environment. You'll find, if you allow yourself to float along, that even the most boring aspects of history, when approached with a relaxed mind, can unveil truly remarkable insights. Like that moment you realize your dog stares at you for 30 minutes straight after you've had a shower, simply because you smell different. Just a profound, quiet observation. Consider, for a moment, the rhythm of such a life. Not dictated by alarm clocks or traffic, but by the rise and fall of the tide, the phases of the moon, the migrations of fish. This was a deep listening, a constant attunement to the subtle language of the earth and the water. Imagine the peaceful predictability this would bring, the communal sense of purpose in maintaining these vast watery farms, generation after generation. It's almost impossible to conceive of such sustained foresight in our current blink and you'll miss it world, where the average shelf life of a smartphone app is shorter than a politician's promise. Historians still debate whether these monumental constructions were purely for pragmatic food sourcing, or if their very scale and communal effort held a profound ritualistic or social binding purpose from their inception. Perhaps it was a combination of both. Practicality wrapped in deep cultural significance, like finding a perfectly good screwdriver at the bottom of your breakfast cereal box. The odd, off-topic fact that might tickle your brain tonight is this. Did you know that the sound of deep ocean waves, specifically at a certain frequency, can actually trigger the production of alpha waves in the human brain, leading to a state of calm relaxation, not unlike meditation? So, as we picture these ancient coastal engineering feats, imagine that constant soothing backdrop of the sea. Perhaps that's why these historical facts are designed to make you feel as though you're slowly sinking into a comfortable cushion. It's all very deliberate, a quiet journey, focusing not on the thud of impact, but the gentle splash of a pebble falling into calm waters. We are just gently setting the scene tonight, preparing our minds for the fascinating details of how these fish traps worked and how they sustained life in a harmonious embrace for millennia. Get ready to embrace the quiet beauty of a perfectly executed, sustainable past, without even needing to lift a finger, except maybe to adjust your pillow. As we continue our gentle journey into the annals of ancient Australian history, letting the gentle hum of discovery lull you deeper into relaxation, let's peel back the layers of time to reveal the true marvels that lie along those serene coastlines and meandering riverbeds. We're talking about structures so cunningly designed, so perfectly aligned with nature's rhythms, they make modern smart homes look about as clever as a potato. These are Australia's ancient Aboriginal fishing traps. Not just simple fences, but intricate stone labyrinths, each rock placed with purpose, each wall designed to outwit the finned residents of the water in the most considerate way possible. Imagine, if you will, standing at the edge of an estuary, or perhaps a tidal river. You're not just seeing water, you're seeing an invisible engineering diagram being drawn by the very tides. As the water rushes in during high tide, it carries with it all sorts of aquatic life, fish, eels, small crustaceans, feeding and meandering over vast shallow areas. Then, almost imperceptibly, the tide begins its slow retreat. And it's during this crucial phase that the ingenious design of these traps comes into play. You see, the ancient builders, with thousands of years of accumulated wisdom whispering through their community, constructed elaborate stone walls, fences, and intricate channels in precisely the right spots. These weren't built with cement or steel beams, but often just cleverly placed rocks, boulders, and sometimes even woven baskets or timber stakes, all secured by nothing more than the careful arrangement and sheer weight. One authoritative historical fact regarding these astonishing structures is that the Gunda Chumara people of Budj Bim, in what is now Victoria, created one of the world's most extensive and sophisticated aquaculture systems, featuring weirs, channels, and ponds stretching over 100 square kilometers, with evidence of eel trapping and smoking extending back at least 6,600 years. The system, recognized by UNESCO, effectively managed and farmed eels for continuous food supply. Just think about that. People building complex irrigation and farming systems 6.5 millennia ago, while some of us still struggle to keep a houseplant alive. It truly puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Like finding out your great-great-grandparent invented a silent, self-cleaning vacuum cleaner that also makes perfect toast. It's an inconveniently high bar. So, how did these aquatic architectural wonders work? It's elegantly simple, which is often the hallmark of true genius. As the tide or floodwaters receded, the water levels behind the stone walls would drop, but the fish and eels, having swam over these low walls during the high tide, would find themselves enclosed. The walls, cleverly constructed, allowed the water to drain out, but held the aquatic life in. Some traps were simple crescent or V-shapes, funneling fish towards a single catch point. Others were vast, multi-chambered affairs, veritable watery labyrinths that would politely usher the fish into holding ponds. Imagine checking your mailbox and finding it full of fish that just voluntarily waited for you. No hooks, no nets in the initial capture, just intelligent water management. The enduring purpose of these traps was not merely sustenance for survival, but reliable, bountiful, and remarkably low-effort sustenance. Imagine a future where you don't need to drive to the supermarket. Your dinner just quietly aggregates in your backyard fish pond because the moon is doing all the heavy lifting. This system created food security, meaning communities could count on a consistent, predictable supply of protein, significantly reducing the unpredictability and strenuous effort typically associated with hunting and gathering. This reliable food source likely freed up time for other pursuits, such as elaborate ceremonies, developing intricate art forms, or perhaps debating the optimal trajectory for boomerang returns over several millennia. Historians still debate the extent to which these sustained food sources contributed to larger, more sedentary communities and complex social structures emerging in particular regions of Aboriginal Australia, particularly around the major fish trap systems. Did more food mean more time for social networking and inventing the earliest forms of ancient podcasting? Probably. The variety of designs across different landscapes is also a testament to this deep connection. In coastal areas, traps might be built into reefs, utilizing tidal flows. In riverine environments, channels would be diverted or walls constructed to catch migrating fish during seasonal floods. Some were relatively small, managed by families, while others were massive, requiring the coordinated effort of entire clans, even nations, to build and maintain. This wasn't a one-size-fits-all solution, like thinking all socks should be worn with sandals. Each trap was a tailored response to its specific environment, a true symbiotic relationship between people and place. The construction materials themselves were predominantly local. Rocks, large and small, carefully selected and fitted together like an ancient jigsaw puzzle. In some places, logs were driven into the riverbed to form palisades, interwoven with branches to create permeable barriers. It's an approach that makes our modern insistence on flying strawberries halfway around the world seem rather unoptimized. One might say they were the original proponents of local sourcing, before local sourcing became a trendy hashtag. Except they actually needed to. Necessity truly is the mother of all innovations, though sometimes she gives birth to truly strange children, like those ergonomic office chairs that make you look like you're riding an invisible horse. Now for a truly odd, off-topic fact to gently jiggle your brain before you completely drift off. Did you know that the electric eel isn't actually an eel at all? It's a type of knife fish, capable of generating up to 860 volts of electricity. Just imagine accidentally trying to pick one of those up out of your neatly laid fish trap. It might add a certain unexpected zing to dinner, literally. Good thing those particular eels are only found in South America. The local Australian ones were much more agreeable, simply flopping gently in the traps. The beauty of these ancient designs lies in their passivity. They weren't active hunting tools that required constant vigilance and energy expenditure. Instead, they patiently waited for the water to do its work, then presented the catch with minimal effort from the humans involved. This low-impact, high-yield approach ensured the long-term sustainability of the fish populations. You took what you needed, leaving plenty for tomorrow and plenty to reproduce. It was the original set-it-and-forget-it farming method, long before Ron Popeil came along selling rotisserie ovens. This foresight is a quiet, powerful testament to their deep ecological knowledge and the multi-generational planning embedded in their way of life, truly cementing their status as pioneers of passive income in a prehistoric context. Drifting deeper into the ancient flow, Past the clever designs of the stone labyrinths we touched on, our sleepy exploration now leads us directly to the magnificent engine behind their consistent success: the tireless rhythmic power of the tides. Imagine a vast, breathing ocean, constantly inhaling and exhaling. And early Aboriginal people didn't just observe this oceanic breath, they learned to dance with it, to harness its power with an ingenuity that rivals, if not surpasses, many of our modern energy-guzzling solutions. This wasn't just smart, it was deeply respectful, an engineering partnership with nature, not a dominance over it. You see, for millennia, Aboriginal communities observed the precise ebb and flow of the tides along their coastlines and into the estuaries and rivers. They charted the nuances of high and low tides, the variations based on moon phases, the currents, and even the preferences of different fish species. This wasn't science in a laboratory. This was science lived, breathed, and embodied through generations of accumulated knowledge. They understood that when the tide swells, vast quantities of marine life follow the incoming water, pushing inland, foraging in the shallower feeding grounds that become submerged. Then, with the inevitable pull of the receding tide, these fish begin their journey back to deeper waters. And that was the moment of genius. The traps, those very stone walls and channels we briefly explored, were perfectly positioned to interrupt this return journey. Picture a gently curving stone wall, low enough to be entirely submerged during high tide. The fish swim over it, oblivious. Then, as the tide turns, the water begins to drain away. But the fish, now grazing in the shallower water behind the wall, find their exit blocked. The water escapes, perhaps through carefully chosen gaps, or simply seeps out, but the aquatic inhabitants remain, calmly corralled in what are essentially pre-prepared fish pools. It's like having your personal supermarket aisles, just waiting for you to stroll by and pick out dinner. No chasing, no wrestling, just nature doing most of the work. If you've ever tried to organize your digital photos and realized half of them are blurry pictures of your thumb, you can appreciate the level of quiet, organized brilliance this required. This masterful engineering with the ocean's breath wasn't just about catching fish. It was about generating an astonishing degree of food security. Unlike unpredictable hunting for land animals or the highly energetic pursuit of fishing with spears or nets in open water, these traps provided a predictable, reliable, and essentially passive yield. One authoritative historical fact illustrating this sophistication is the analysis of the fish traps at Lake Conda, Budge Bim cultural landscape. Archaeological findings there show that the Gundit Jamara people precisely managed the water flow from Lake Conda into Darlot Creek through complex systems of stone weirs, channels, and pools. These constructions not only directed eels into specific capture sites, but also manipulated water levels to ensure a sustainable breeding environment, demonstrating an advanced understanding of aquatic ecosystem management that far predates contemporary aquaculture practices. They weren't just taking, they were stewarding the resource, which, let's be honest, makes them light years ahead of many modern industrial fishing operations that are still busy trying to catch all the fish for their immediate gratification. Think of the relief and the stability this would have brought to a community. Instead of the feast or famine cycles often associated with traditional hunting and gathering, here was a consistent food source. It meant less energy spent on immediate survival and more time for other important cultural activities: storytelling, art, ceremonies, raising children, and yes, probably arguing about who gets to clean out the eel trap this week. This reliability laid a foundation for sedentary lifestyles in certain areas, allowing for larger populations to congregate and flourish. You know, like how consistent internet access allows us to argue about politics on social media all day, instead of going outside. Sort of similar. The term engineering here isn't used lightly. It implies deliberate design, knowledge of materials, and an understanding of dynamic systems. They didn't just plonk rocks down randomly. Each rock, each channel, each low wall was positioned to exploit specific hydrological principles. In tidal estuaries, the exact curve and height of a stone wall could maximize the retention of fish, while allowing fresh water to escape at low tide, thus maintaining optimal water conditions for the trapped aquatic life. Some of these traps had complex overflow sections, ensuring that juvenile fish or smaller species could escape, reinforcing the long-term sustainability of the harvest. It's an example of truly clever systems design without any need for PowerPoints or cloud computing. Historians still debate the extent to which these specific, highly detailed construction techniques were taught explicitly or learned implicitly through observation and participation over multiple generations within kin groups. Was there a sort of apprenticeship in ancient fish trap construction 101 going on? Or was it simply osmosis, like how we mysteriously absorb the lyrics to every pop song after hearing it 3 times? To imagine this sensory experience, think about the smell of salt and mud and wet stone under the strong Australian sun, the rhythmic sloshing of the tide, the quiet anticipation as the water slowly recedes, revealing the silver flash of entrapped fish. You're not frantically casting a net. You're simply walking into a shallow pond to collect your meal. It's a testament to patience, observation, and deep respect for the natural world. This was farming on nature's terms, not imposing human will, but adapting to nature's existing mechanisms. And for an odd off-topic fact, did you know that the gravitational pull of the moon and sun primarily causes tides, but even giant supervolcanoes erupting can slightly, almost imperceptibly, alter global sea levels and thus potentially influence very minor tidal dynamics? So, when these ancient communities looked up at the moon, they weren't just gazing at a celestial body, they were checking their dinner plans for the next week, albeit on a very, very grand scale. Luckily, no ancient supervolcanoes decided to join in and mess up the weekly fish supply, adding a sudden molten lava ingredient to the recipe. These fishing traps represent a symbiotic relationship, people providing the passive structures and the environment providing the active energy and the bounty. This continuous interplay, sustained over thousands of years, is what allowed certain communities to flourish, developing rich cultural practices built upon a foundation of secure food resources. It stands as a profound reminder that humanity's greatest achievements often come not from fighting nature, but from understanding its gentle, immense power, and then, with subtle wisdom, aligning oneself with its majestic rhythm. We've explored the ingenious stone mazes and the mighty tidal breath that powered Australia's ancient fish traps. But now, as you float deeper into your comfortable realm, let's zoom out from the watery edge and broaden our tranquil gaze to the grand tapestry of daily existence for early Aboriginal Australians. You see, while these incredible fish traps provided an undeniable cornerstone of their sustenance, life wasn't just about waiting for dinner to swim in. Far from it. These fixed points of abundance created opportunities, allowing for a richness of daily rhythm and an interconnectedness that echoes even today. Imagine you're part of this ancient community. While the predictable yield from the traps certainly frees up energy, you're not just kicking back like it's a permanent all-you-can-eat buffet with an ocean view. You shuffle along through diverse landscapes, not simply collecting, but interacting with the land. Your day might involve foraging for an incredible variety of native plants, digging for juicy yam roots, collecting sweet native fruits like quandongs or kakadu plums, often bursting with more vitamin C than you'd believe possible, putting your morning orange juice to absolute shame. Or perhaps you're gathering seeds from hardy grasses, later to be ground into flour for making bread. It's a vast pantry, provided you know where to look and, crucially, when to look. Beyond the plant kingdom, a sophisticated understanding of local wildlife was paramount. While fish were a consistent meal, hunting land animals was also a skilled pursuit, though often more unpredictable. Imagine tracking kangaroos across arid plains, their distinctive hop bounce disappearing into the distance, or patiently observing the flight patterns of birds. It required stealth, patience, and a deep knowledge of animal behavior. This comprehensive knowledge wasn't just practical, it was foundational. Every rock formation, every waterhole, every seasonal shift in flora and fauna was a chapter in a vast, unwritten ecological textbook. The fish traps, then, were like a super reliable fridge, You always knew you had the essentials, freeing you to occasionally hunt for that special occasion gourmet roast. And let's be honest, hunting was probably still easier than trying to get the remote working for your smart TV on a sleepy night. The very creation and maintenance of the fish traps instilled a deep communal spirit and intricate social structure. These vast projects, requiring significant effort and coordination, fostered shared responsibilities and cemented community bonds. Everyone had a role, from selecting the right stones to understanding the precise flow of the water, ensuring the traps functioned optimally year after year, century after century. It's hard to imagine in our individualistic world that something as seemingly mundane as infrastructure development was a deep community act. It's like everyone in your street contributing to fix the potholes, rather than just endlessly complaining about them. An authoritative historical fact that underscores this profound social interconnectedness is the widespread practice of fire stick farming, or cultural burning. For tens of thousands of years, Aboriginal people systematically and sensitively managed the land through controlled burns, clearing undergrowth, encouraging new plant growth, and shaping animal habitats. This was not haphazard destruction, but a sophisticated land management tool that nurtured biodiversity, prevented destructive wildfires, and increased the yield of edible plants and favored game animals. This wasn't just a fire, it was a conversation with the landscape, conducted over thousands of years, far predating modern environmental science departments. This demonstrates an ecological literacy that integrated resource use with ecosystem health, a gentle hand guiding the entire continent. This stable, resource-rich lifestyle afforded time for the flourishing of incredibly rich cultural practices. Think of the mesmerizing rock art, spanning millennia, depicting complex spiritual beliefs, animals, and ancestral figures. Imagine evenings filled with storytelling around crackling fires, where history, law, morality, and cosmology were passed down through intricate narratives, songs, and dances, each generation adding to the vast collective memory. These were living histories, vibrant traditions that defined their sense of self and their relationship to their country. Historians still debate the precise balance between specialized roles and shared responsibilities within larger Aboriginal communities, particularly concerning the ownership and transmission of highly technical knowledge like trap construction and detailed ecological practices. Was there a master builder, or was everyone generally proficient enough to pitch in, much like how we all sort of know how to use Google, even if we're not coding algorithms? These societies weren't just about survival, they were about flourishing. There was time for ceremony, for celebrating important life stages, for intricate adornment, and for travel along ancient trade routes that crisscrossed the continent. These routes weren't just for goods like ochre, tools, or a precious pearl shell. They were also vital conduits for the exchange of songs, dances, and stories, creating a vibrant cultural web across vast distances. Think of it like a continent-wide, pre-internet version of Etsy mixed with Spotify and Twitter. Imagine walking hundreds of miles to swap some really good ochre for a new song cycle about a rainbow serpent or a cool new stone axe head instead of just browsing endlessly on Amazon from your couch. The soundscape of this life would have been profoundly different from ours. The distant chatter of a community at work, the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of stone tool-making, children playing, the haunting melody of a didgeridoo against the twilight. Perhaps even the occasional polite disagreement about whose turn it was to scare the possums out of the fruit trees. For a genuinely odd, off-topic fact that might make you tilt your head, did you know that the Earth's inner core is technically hotter than the surface of the Sun? It's about 6,000 degrees C, 10,800 degrees Fahm. So while these early Australians were enjoying the relatively cool evenings after a productive day of living off the land, there was a literal miniature sun cooking beneath their feet. Thankfully, it's far, far down, unlike a stubborn bedsheet that just won't stay put. This holistic approach to life, where every activity, from collecting roots to managing the fish traps, was intertwined with ceremony, knowledge, and community, highlights a deeply integrated worldview. It was a lifestyle built on sustainability and respect, where country wasn't just land, but an entity to be cared for, providing for those who cared for it in return. It's a reminder that true wealth wasn't measured in possessions, but in connections, knowledge, and the enduring health of the land that sustained them. As you consider these deep, abiding rhythms, perhaps the busy urgency of your own day might recede just a little, allowing you to settle into a deeper, more profound rest, imagining a world where every action was a thread woven into the fabric of a long, quiet dream. We've been gently cradled by the rhythm of ancient Aboriginal life, seeing how the tidal power fuels their remarkable fish traps, and how this dependable food source fostered rich cultural flourishing. Now, as your thoughts gently unfurl like ancient river grasses, let's hone in on the sheer, colossal effort involved in constructing these magnificent stone marvels. This wasn't a weekend DIY project, nor something a few keen individuals threw together after a light breakfast. This was the result of a communal spirit so profound, an understanding of engineering so inherent, that it makes building even the most elaborate Lego castle seem like a walk in the park. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast, intertidal mudflat or a wide, slow-moving river. The vision is immense, not just a small pool, but a network of walls and channels that might span hundreds of meters, sometimes even kilometers. The sheer volume of stone moved, lifted, and strategically placed beggars belief. There were no earth-moving machines, no forklifts, no cranes, not even particularly sophisticated wheelbarrows. Every single rock, from a modest fist-sized pebble to a colossal boulder weighing many tons, was handled by human hands. And not just human hands, but human ingenuity guiding those hands. The process would begin with observation. Tens, perhaps hundreds of years of observation. Communities watched how water flowed, how the land dipped and rose, where fish naturally congregated. They identified the optimal locations where the land-water interface naturally lent itself to trap construction. Then came the communal planning. It wouldn't be sketched out on paper. It would be envisioned in the mind, discussed, refined, and passed down orally. Think of it as a blueprint rendered entirely through collective memory and environmental empathy. This oral transmission of complex architectural and hydrological knowledge is, in itself, a profound historical achievement, highlighting the meticulous memory and communication practices of these societies. If I can barely remember where I put my car keys 5 minutes ago, the thought of designing and constructing an entire water management system through generations of spoken word is truly mind-boggling. Once the plan was conceptualized, the physical labor began. Gathering the stones often involved extracting them from rocky outcrops, or perhaps simply collecting them from areas where they naturally occurred in abundance. Sometimes, this would mean considerable distances, or hauling incredibly heavy loads over uneven terrain. Think of the rhythmic grunts, the coordinated shouts of communal effort as large groups worked together to roll or drag immense boulders into position. It would have been a choreography of strength and strategy. This wasn't simply muscle power. It was strategic muscle power, employed with astonishing precision. Like trying to delicately move a fragile antique china cabinet across a bouncy castle. The technique for placing the stones was crucial. They weren't simply stacked randomly. These were structures built to withstand the relentless force of tidal flows, the pounding of waves, and the shifting of river currents, often for thousands of years. The larger, heavier stones would form the base and outer layers, providing stability. Smaller stones and sediment would be used to infill, creating a tightly woven structure that allowed water to pass slowly while containing aquatic life. In some areas, where rocks were scarce, they might have employed timber stakes driven into the soft sediment, then interwoven with branches or reeds to form flexible, permeable fences. An authoritative historical fact here. The dry stone wall construction techniques used in many Aboriginal fish traps, such as those at Brewarina, are remarkably similar to complex ancient engineering feats found globally, showcasing a universal ingenuity in civil engineering. despite often being developed completely independently. These weren't crude efforts. They were robust, elegant solutions. The Brewerina Bayame's Ngunhu fish traps, for instance, consist of elaborate stone weirs that divert fish into complex pens, adapted perfectly to the specific hydrological conditions of the Barwon River, some of which are said to be over 40,000 years old. This massive communal undertaking fostered a strong sense of ownership and responsibility. Imagine the collective pride of a community looking out at their vast, perfectly functioning fish traps. It wasn't just a food source. It was a legacy, a testament to the skill, cooperation, and foresight of their ancestors and themselves. Maintaining these traps would have been an ongoing task, repairing storm damage, clearing silt, or repositioning dislodged stones. It was an intergenerational pact, where the knowledge of construction and maintenance was passed down with the same care and reverence as sacred stories. Historians still debate the specific methods used for the largest stone movements, particularly in regions where bedrock had to be quarried, considering the lack of formal metal tools. Whether leverage, rolling, or a combination of techniques, combined with specialized geological knowledge, played the predominant role. Maybe they just told the rocks a really bad joke until they rolled over laughing? Unlikely, but it's fun to imagine. The sensory details would be potent. The splash of water, the grunts of effort, the gritty feel of wet stone against hands, the salty breeze, the shimmering heat off the land, and the satisfying thud as another heavy rock settles precisely into place. It's a symphony of physical labor and environmental awareness. For an odd, off-topic fact that might make you ponder the weight of things. Did you know that a single rain cloud can weigh hundreds of tons? So, when the first heavy rain hit after construction, these builders weren't just bracing for water. They were potentially bracing for hundreds of tons of flying atmospheric liquid. A tiny bit like being stood under a really, really leaky hose that was powered by gravity. Fortunately, the fish traps were designed to manage water, not succumb to its whims. In contemplating the human scale of this endeavor, we begin to understand that these weren't just functional structures. They were profound cultural landscapes, etched into the very earth, connecting generations through shared purpose and collective achievement. Every stone became a whisper of ancient hands, a quiet echo of untold stories, and a profound statement of human adaptability and sustainable innovation. As your consciousness gently blurs around the edges, picture those endless hours, days, weeks, months of meticulous, communal work. Each placement of a stone, an act of reverence for the land, a prayer for sustenance, and a promise to future generations. Such was the magnificent human effort of shaping the land to gently provide its bounty. Having imagined the incredible, collective effort involved in crafting these colossal stone fish traps, let's now allow our minds to gently drift across the diverse continent of Australia. For as fascinating as the large-scale engineering is, the truly remarkable aspect is not just their existence, but their adaptability. We are talking about coastlines, vast rivers, arid inland waterholes, and lush floodplains, and the wisdom embedded in these ancient structures varied to perfectly match every single landscape. This wasn't a rigid, one-size-fits-all blueprint, but a testament to deeply contextual, flexible ingenuity. It's like being able to make the perfect cup of coffee no matter if you're using an espresso machine, a French press, or just some hot water and instant grounds in a moment of desperation. Our previous journeys have hinted at tidal estuary traps, designed to harness the rhythmic push and pull of the ocean. These are often the largest, most visually striking, with sweeping stone walls that extend far out into the water, forming elaborate U or V shapes, or complex networks of channels. Imagine the ancient equivalent of Venice, but instead of gondolas, it's designed to guide fish directly into your personal larder. An authoritative historical fact underscores this diversity. The fish traps at Dampier Archipelago in Western Australia, believed to be among the oldest evidence of marine exploitation globally, demonstrate ingenious rock constructions on tidal flats to trap fish, eels, and crabs as the tide recedes, adapted specifically to the unique tidal range and reef ecosystems of that region. The design directly reflects the local conditions, from rocky shorelines to expansive muddy estuaries, making them uniquely effective for catching a variety of marine life from that specific area. But move inland, away from the roaring ocean, and the design wisdom morphs. Consider the vast river systems, like the mighty Murray-Darling. Here, traps aren't dependent on tides but on seasonal river flows and floods. At places like Brewarina in New South Wales, we see extraordinary arrangements of intricate stone weirs that form a series of large interconnected pools. These are the famous Bayames Ngunhu, or Brewarina fish traps. These riverine traps typically functioned by funneling fish upstream during breeding migrations, or trapping them as floodwaters receded after a rainy season, channeling them into specific holding pens from which they could be easily collected. It's like a strategically placed detour on a highway that just happens to lead straight to your living room for all the traffic you might want for dinner. The variation in design wasn't arbitrary. It was a response to incredibly specific ecological conditions. In some places, traps might be designed specifically to catch migrating eels, perhaps leading them into elaborate holding ponds from where they could be easily harvested. In others, they might target different fish species like freshwater cod or yellowbelly, adapted to their specific swimming habits and breeding cycles. Think of the specialized knowledge required, not just about water flow, but about the nuanced behaviors of countless species over thousands of years. It's a level of biological observation that far predates any formal university degree. You can almost hear the ancient elders exchanging tips, like modern gardeners debating the merits of organic fertilizer versus conventional methods, but with stakes a little higher than the size of a tomato. Then there are the less common, but equally ingenious traps associated with more ephemeral water sources, billabongs and inland lakes that fluctuate dramatically with rainfall. Here, traps might involve smaller, simpler arrangements of stones, or even ingenious methods of building dams or modifying natural depressions to hold water and fish after a flood event, to be harvested when water levels dropped during dry spells. These transient traps are testament to a profound adaptability to highly unpredictable environmental conditions, showcasing incredible resilience and planning, even in seemingly desolate areas. One could argue that the construction methods themselves reveal diverse wisdom. While many involved moving colossal stones, in softer, muddier areas, ingenious woven fish traps or basket weirs would have been employed, perhaps anchored by wooden stakes. These less permanent structures, made from flexible plant materials, were no less effective, demonstrating that sustainability often meant working with the materials that were most accessible and renewable. It was a commitment to living light on the land, leaving minimal footprint, unlike, say, leaving your phone charger tangled in a chaotic nest of cables after a long day. Historians still debate the specific methods used to select, transport, and precisely place the colossal stones in different geologies, given the variation in rock types and available tools across the continent. Was it pure leverage, sledges, water buoyancy for very large pieces, or a complex interplay of all three tailored to each specific location? The absence of a written language, requiring this incredibly complex knowledge to be passed down entirely orally and through hands-on teaching, remains a source of respectful academic debate, reminding us that different forms of knowledge transmission can be equally powerful and enduring. It's like trying to explain to someone how to make the perfect omelet without ever showing them an egg or a frying pan, but somehow they just get it. For an odd off-topic fact that makes you appreciate diverse habitats, did you know that some species of fungi are so hardy they can survive in outer space? Imagine explaining that to an ancient Australian who relied entirely on terrestrial resources, a mushroom that went on a trip to the moon. They'd probably wonder if it made good eating when it came back down. Good thing the fish stayed firmly grounded in the aquatic realms of Earth. So, as we drift deeper into the tranquility of the evening, reflect on the astounding range of human ingenuity reflected in these traps. From the sweeping coastal structures of the Gunai-Kurnai people in Victoria to the riverine wonders of the Ngemba and Wailwan people at Brewarina, each represents a bespoke masterpiece. This varied wisdom wasn't just about survival. It was about living in harmony with the land in all its forms, adapting not just to survive, but to truly thrive, making each community a unique master of its own environment. It reminds us that often, the smartest solutions aren't universally applied, but exquisitely tailored to the specific world you inhabit. As our narrative current flows onward, having explored the incredible diversity of ancient fish traps across Australia's varied landscapes, let's now settle into a contemplation of what made these intricate systems truly endure. The living heartbeat of the community. For these were not monuments simply built and then left to fend for themselves, gathering dust, or rather, collecting silt. Oh no, the very genius of these structures lay in their ongoing maintenance, the shared responsibilities, and the deeply ingrained collaborative spirit that ensured they functioned perfectly for millennia. It's like tending to a perpetually flourishing garden, where every bloom, every leaf, is a testament to consistent, communal care, unlike your unfortunate houseplant from last year, which, let's be honest, withered after week 1. Imagine a scene not of frantic construction, but of rhythmic, measured activity. The seasons dictate the rhythm of life, and so too do they dictate the rhythm of trap maintenance. After a powerful wet season, floodwaters could dislodge stones or deposit vast amounts of silt. During a particularly high king tide, a section of a tidal trap might be breached. It wasn't about prevention, but about proactive restoration and repair. Communal working parties would assemble. Old men, their faces etched with the wisdom of countless years, would point out the weak points, sharing their unparalleled knowledge of currents and structural integrity. Younger generations, strong and eager, would heave and carry, their hands learning the exact weight and angle of the rocks, mirroring the efforts of their ancestors. This was a perpetual, intergenerational workshop. An authoritative historical fact that speaks to this enduring responsibility is that, according to indigenous oral histories and early colonial accounts, the maintenance of the vast Brewarina fish traps, Bayames Ngunhu, involved large numbers of people from various language groups. This intricate network of weirs was consistently managed and repaired over countless generations, ensuring its continuous productivity. The repairs often occurred after seasonal floods, involving the skilled repositioning of thousands of stones by large gatherings of people from neighboring nations. It was not just an individual or even a single family's task. It was a testament to pan-tribal cooperation, a living, working example of regional governance in action, which makes our modern international agreements seem as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake. The sense of ownership and responsibility was profound. Each trap, or section of a large trap, might be associated with specific families or clans, but its function was for the benefit of the entire community, or, in some cases, several cooperating communities. This meant that the care of these structures wasn't seen as a chore, but as an essential and honored contribution. Picture a community meeting not in a stuffy conference room, but gathered around a vast, empty fish trap, planning its rehabilitation, every voice heard, every perspective considered. It's the original crowdsourced project management, except infinitely more patient and infinitely more effective. The knowledge involved in this maintenance wasn't just physical. It was about understanding the nuances of water flow, predicting seasonal changes, observing the movement of different fish species, and knowing where vulnerabilities might occur. It was a holistic environmental science embedded in daily practice, like remembering exactly where every stubborn dust bunny hides under your sofa after a long week. Beyond just the structural integrity, maintenance also included sustainable harvesting practices. The aim was never to simply strip the resource bare. Rather, it was about ensuring long-term yield. This often meant carefully selecting the size and type of fish harvested, ensuring that breeding stock remained abundant. Some traps were designed with bypasses or holding pens that allowed smaller fish to escape or remain for future growth. It's resource management with incredible foresight, thinking generations ahead. You might think twice before you take the last cookie from the jar. These communities thought thousands of years ahead. Historians still debate the extent to which these specific, highly detailed construction techniques were taught explicitly or learned implicitly through observation and participation over multiple generations within kin groups. Was there a sort of apprenticeship in ancient fish trap construction 101 going on? Or was it simply osmosis, like how we mysteriously absorb the lyrics to every pop song after hearing it 3 times? This wasn't just about rocks and water, it was about fostering communal identity. Working together on these shared assets strengthened social bonds, reinforcing cultural values of cooperation, respect for elders, and a deep connection to country. Stories and songs would often accompany the work, making the effort part of the rich cultural tapestry, ensuring the traditions lived on in the hearts and hands of the people. It's like the team-building exercises where you fall backwards and trust your colleagues to catch you, except instead of falling, you're hefting several tons of rock. And the team involves multiple generations and potentially several distinct tribal groups working together for the collective good. A considerably more effective team-building exercise, I'd wager. Imagine the unique sensory experience, the communal chatter and laughter, the splashes of water, the grunts of exertion, the feel of smooth, worn stone, the smell of damp earth and river water, perhaps the comforting aroma of cooking fish nearby, prepared by those who weren't involved in the heavier labor. For an odd off-topic fact that has nothing to do with fishing traps, but everything to do with cooperative ventures. Did you know that a group of ferrets is called a business? Just picture an actual business of ferrets meticulously repairing a fish trap. They'd probably make a mess, but would undoubtedly look quite determined while doing it. Thankfully, humans were doing the heavy lifting in ancient Australia. The enduring legacy of these traps isn't just their physical presence. It's the profound lesson in community, foresight, and sustainable living they impart. They stand as quiet testament to societies that understood true wealth lay not in individual accumulation, but in collective well-being and the careful stewardship of the resources that sustained them for unbroken millennia. So, as you finally allow yourself to sink completely into slumber, perhaps you can visualize this rhythmic, harmonious labor, a gentle reminder of what enduring cooperation looks like when humans live truly with their environment. We've now floated through the ingenious construction and diligent maintenance of Australia's ancient fish traps, powered by tides and community spirit. Our gentle journey continues, shifting focus from the how to the delightful what. Imagine the immense variety of life thriving within these watery systems, providing consistent, abundant nourishment that truly transformed daily existence. From water to sustenance, these traps were, in essence, highly efficient and ecologically harmonious, aquatic larders. Picture yourself, not with a shopping cart, but simply walking into a carefully enclosed pool, the water shallow and clear. What would you find? Depending on the location, be it a coastal estuary, a tidal river, or an inland floodplain, the menu changed, but the abundance remained. In estuarine and coastal traps, you might encounter a glittering array of marine life. Mullet, a staple for many coastal communities, would be a common sight, their silvery scales catching the sunlight as they gently fun against the stone walls. Small sharks, rays, various types of flathead, and bream would also make their predictable appearances. Beyond the finned creatures, these traps often collected a delightful assortment of shellfish, crabs, and yabbies, freshwater crustaceans resembling miniature lobsters. Imagine wading through, hands gently scooping, gathering mussels, oysters, and other edible delights clinging to the submerged rocks or resting on the muddy bottom. This wasn't just a single food source. It was a diverse buffet, ensuring a rich and varied diet packed with protein and essential nutrients, unlike that stale, half-eaten pizza you might be considering for breakfast. In the freshwater riverine systems, particularly the magnificent Brewarina fish traps and the Budge Bim aquaculture system, the focus shifts. beautifully showcasing local adaptation. Eels, especially short-finned and long-finned eels, were incredibly significant. These remarkable creatures undertake vast migrations, often traveling thousands of kilometers from the ocean to spawn in freshwater systems. The traps expertly captured them on these journeys, especially as water levels receded after seasonal floods. Imagine an ancient drive-through for eels, where the service is impeccable and the customers are literally delivering themselves to your doorstep. An authoritative historical fact illustrates this perfectly. Research at the Budge Bim Cultural Landscape shows extensive evidence of sophisticated eel farming. This includes elaborate networks of channels, weirs, and ponds used to trap, hold, and smoke large quantities of short-finned eels, which could then be stored and transported, creating a truly surplus economy rather than mere subsistence living. This level of planned agriculture for an aquatic species dates back over 6,600 years. This consistent and abundant yield had a profound impact on ancient diets and overall food security. It provided a reliable protein source, year-round or seasonally predictable, significantly reducing the arduous demands and uncertainty associated with traditional hunting and gathering. It meant communities had consistent energy and nutrients, crucial for daily life, for nurturing children, and for sustaining the older generations. It laid the foundation for communities to become more sedentary, allowing for larger populations, the development of more complex social structures, and more time for elaborate cultural pursuits like ceremonies, storytelling, and artistic expression. It was like having a consistent, well-paying job that allowed you to finally pursue your true passion, be it playing the ancient equivalent of the ukulele or perfecting the art of complaining about the weather. The beauty of this food system was its sustainability. These traps generally allowed smaller or juvenile fish to escape, ensuring that the breeding stock remained robust. They weren't designed to overexploit. They were designed for perpetual harvest. It's a fundamental lesson in ecological wisdom that many modern industrial practices are still trying to grasp. The focus was on partnership with the environment, not on dominion over it. Imagine harvesting your vegetables without destroying the plants, simply picking what you need and knowing they will continue to produce. That's the core philosophy. Think about the preparation and enjoyment of these diverse harvests. Fish might be cooked directly over open coals, smoked for preservation and intensified flavor, or baked in earth ovens. Shellfish could be steamed, and eels could be grilled or smoked for long-term storage and trade. The aroma of freshly cooked fish, mixed with the smoky scent of eucalypt leaves, would have been a daily comfort, a delicious affirmation of their ingenuity. Historians still debate the specific methods of long-term food preservation that were most prevalent across different climatic zones in Australia, particularly regarding the smoking and drying of fish and eels, and the extent of intercommunity trade facilitated by these preserved surpluses. Was there a kind of ancient food critic, assessing the best smoked eel from various regions? One can only dream. An odd, off-topic fact that might make you momentarily think of different kinds of diets. Did you know that an octopus has 3 hearts? 2 pump blood through its gills, and 1 circulates blood to the rest of its body. Thankfully, ancient Australians didn't typically build traps to catch octopuses. Otherwise, processing dinner might have become considerably more complicated. The continuous provision of nourishment from these gentle, aquatic farms is one of the quiet miracles of early Aboriginal life. It allowed generations to not just survive, but to truly thrive, investing their energy in intellectual, spiritual, and artistic endeavors, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow, like today, the water would generously provide its bounty. As your consciousness settles even deeper into slumber, reflect on this harmonious relationship between humans and their environment, where the land and water truly served as partners, nourishing bodies and souls alike. As you settle ever deeper into your sanctuary of sleep, letting the gentle murmur of our story guide you, we move beyond the practical marvels of stones and tides and delve into something far more profound. The deep spiritual, ceremonial, and cultural significance woven into the very fabric of Australia's ancient Aboriginal fishing traps. These were not just clever structures for catching fish. They were sacred landscapes, infused with ancestral energy, imbued with law, story, and ceremony, connecting people to country in ways modern minds often struggle to grasp. For Aboriginal people, the concept of country extends far beyond mere land or physical resources. It encompasses every element: the animals, plants, water, air, stars, and indeed, the very stones. All are infused with the spirits and stories of the dreaming, the ancient creation period that continues into the present, shaping everything. The fish traps, particularly the large ancient ones, are living testaments to this. They are often believed to have been created by ancestral beings in the dreaming, not simply built by human hands. Imagine having your entire food supply chain created by benevolent giant sky gods. It certainly cuts down on the planning meetings and architectural permits. Take, for instance, the famous Brewarina fish traps, known as Bayames Ngunhu. According to Aboriginal dreaming, these intricate stone weirs were not built by humans, but laid down by the ancestral creator spirit, Bayam, and his two sons, as a gift and a symbol of intertribal peace and cooperation. This authoritative historical fact emphasizes that for the local Ngunhu people, Njemba, Wailwan, Barwan Darling nations, the traps are living sacred sites. They are central to their spirituality, law, and identity, reinforcing a timeless connection to creation. The physical structure embodies the law, which dictates proper behavior, sharing protocols, and the obligation to care for the land. This spiritual foundation transforms practical activity into sacred duty. Maintaining the traps, collecting the fish, and managing the resource was not just a chore. It was an act of reverence, an adherence to the law passed down through the dreaming. The care of these sites becomes a continuation of the ancestors' work, a sacred responsibility ensuring not only physical sustenance, but also the continuation of cultural and spiritual life. You weren't just repairing a wall, you were enacting a millennia-old ceremony, a performance of ancestral memory that continued to keep the world in balance. It certainly adds a certain gravitas to patching up a leaky pipe, doesn't it? Makes arguing with a plumber feel quite disrespectful to the ancestral pipe-mending spirits. Ceremonies would often be held around the traps, particularly during key harvest seasons, or when intertribal gatherings occurred for collective maintenance. These would be vibrant affairs, filled with song, dance, and storytelling, retelling the dreaming narratives associated with the traps, reinforcing cultural norms, and celebrating the bounty of the land and water. The very rhythm of the dance steps, the particular notes of a song, the symbolic movements, all contributed to the renewal of the land and the health of the community. Think of it as a perfectly synchronized, multi-sensory spiritual performance, much more engaging than trying to find your specific streaming service through 5 different menus in the dead of night. The presence of these significant fixed structures also played a crucial role in establishing boundaries, shared territories, and complex systems of intergroup relationships and protocols. The land around a major trap system might be the traditional country of one group, but usage rights for fishing or access might extend to others through carefully negotiated agreements, underpinned by shared ceremonies and dreaming stories. These were living peace treaties, forged in stone and reinforced by common purpose. Historians still debate the extent to which these specific, highly detailed sacred meanings and custodial roles were passed down through specific initiatory practices, or whether more open forms of teaching contributed to the widespread knowledge and understanding of their profound cultural significance across various communities. Was there a strict curriculum, or more of a gentle spiritual osmosis? The sheer continuity of use of some of these traps over tens of thousands of years reinforces their deep cultural importance. They connect present-day Aboriginal people directly to their ancient past, providing tangible links to their ancestors and their timeless knowledge. The sight of the traps, even in ruins, evokes memory, strengthens identity, and reconfirms connections to country that transcend the mere physical. They are powerful symbols of endurance, resilience, and an unbroken spiritual heritage. For an odd, off-topic fact that might make you think about very old things and very subtle movements, did you know that human fingernails continue to grow even after death? Luckily, this has absolutely no bearing on ancient fishing trap maintenance, where active living hands were very much required. The cultural fabric woven around these traps is incredibly intricate. It includes sophisticated sharing systems ensuring that no one went hungry, and that the resources were managed sustainably. Laws surrounding ownership of specific trap sections, distribution of catch, and the respectful treatment of the fish themselves were meticulously maintained. These were living laboratories of sustainable resource management, driven by deep spiritual tenets. This profound integration of pragmatism and reverence for nature represents a model of living in harmony with the environment that carries powerful lessons for today's world. It's like discovering that your grandmother's quirky antique cabinet is not only beautiful, but also secretly generates electricity and cleans itself. Multi-purpose, sustainable, and unexpectedly profound. As the soothing darkness deepens, imagine the whispers of ancestral spirits in the wind that rustles over these ancient stones. Feel the gentle, spiritual hum that emanates from such places, knowing that every rock, every channel holds within it thousands of years of human intention, sacred meaning, and harmonious interaction with the natural world. These structures are not merely relics. They are resonant spaces, quiet powerhouses of cultural memory, silently broadcasting the wisdom of deep time and enduring connection. Let this tranquil knowledge seep into your very being, guiding you toward a peaceful and reflective slumber. As you comfortably settle, wrapped in the quietude of our journey through Australia's ancient past, we shift from the tangible rocks and the spiritual significance of the fish traps and descend gently into the realm of discovery itself. Our focus now turns to how archaeologists, like meticulous and incredibly patient detectives, have begun to piece together the silent, long story of these millennia-old structures and the people who so intimately connected with them. It's like uncovering fragments of an incredibly complex, slow-motion ballet that played out over thousands of years, finding discarded programs and costume pieces, and trying to reconstruct the entire performance. Imagine the work of an archaeologist, not as an Indiana Jones-esque adventure of thrilling chases, but as a painstaking, almost meditative process. They don't just stumble upon these sites, they're often guided by the deep, enduring oral histories of Aboriginal elders who have meticulously passed down knowledge of these places for generations. These living libraries provide invaluable clues, indicating where ancient middens, accumulations of shells, bones, and other cultural refuse from past human occupation, might be found, or where erosion might reveal buried stone structures. It's a remarkable partnership, where ancient knowledge meets modern scientific methods. Once a site is identified, the work begins. It's a gentle intrusion into deep time. Instead of grand excavations, archaeologists often employ delicate techniques, carefully sifting through layers of earth, recording every shell fragment, every tool flake, every charcoal speck. These tiny clues, invisible to the untrained eye, tell colossal stories. A small stone tool, for instance, can indicate the type of activity that took place there. Was it food preparation? Was it tool repair? Or perhaps the precise flaking pattern reveals the maker's hand, connecting them to an ancient craft tradition. The older the artifact, the more profoundly it echoes. It's a lot like trying to understand the eating habits of your neighbors by examining the contents of their recycling bin, but with much, much older and infinitely more interesting leftovers. One authoritative historical fact highlights this detective work. Scientific dating methods, such as radiocarbon dating of organic materials found in association with the structures, like charcoal from ancient hearths or bone fragments, have been instrumental in establishing the extreme antiquity of sites like the Budge Bim cultural landscape, confirming active eel aquaculture there for over 6,600 years. Similar dating techniques have placed the Brewarina fish traps, Biomase Ngunhu, as among the oldest human constructions in the world. These methods provide concrete, undeniable proof of a sophistication and continuity of culture that sometimes stretches back beyond the capabilities of oral history alone, marrying two different types of historical accounts. It's the moment when science and ancient wisdom clasp hands in understanding. The environmental context is also crucial. Geologists and geomorphologists study how rivers and coastlines have changed over millennia. They examine ancient sand dunes, analyze soil layers, and track shifts in sea levels, because the traps would have been adapted to a constantly evolving environment. A trap designed for one water level thousands of years ago might have needed modification as coastlines changed due to melting ice sheets, a geological dance over epochs. This contextual data allows archaeologists to reconstruct the dynamic world in which these people lived and innovated, rather than viewing the traps as static relics. It's like understanding that the reason your ancient flip phone eventually became useless was because the whole world decided to move on to smart technology, rather than the phone just being generally antisocial. A significant part of the archaeological work involves mapping the traps themselves with incredible precision, using drones, laser scanning, and GPS technology. This creates detailed three-dimensional models, preserving the structures digitally and allowing researchers to study their precise engineering without disturbing them physically. It's a modern-day blueprint of ancient genius, a very elaborate TAD program for structures designed thousands of years ago. Historians still debate the optimal interpretive framework for integrating archaeological data with indigenous oral traditions. While Western archaeology seeks to build chronologies and material interpretations, Aboriginal perspectives prioritize cultural significance, unbroken connections, and the active presence of ancestral beings. The best practice involves collaborative approaches, where indigenous voices guide the research questions and interpret findings, ensuring respect for cultural sensitivities and integrating knowledge systems that complement, rather than contradict, one another. This is far from being a straightforward dig-it-up scenario. It's a profound dialogue across time and culture. Is the material proof primary? Or is the continuous spiritual story the ultimate truth? Or both, singing in a shared chorus? The odd, off-topic fact for tonight that makes you think about ancient discoveries. Did you know that the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland has reportedly been spotted thousands of times, often resulting in blurred photographs and exciting stories? In contrast, the monsters, the large fish and eels, caught in these ancient Aboriginal fish traps were very real, very tangible, and very much dinner. Luckily, the only blurriness tonight is from your slowly fading consciousness. Through the quiet patience of archaeological investigation, often paired with the profound insights of Aboriginal traditional owners, we are slowly but surely lifting the veil on these quiet wonders. Each shard of shell, each precisely placed stone, whispers secrets of adaptation, resilience, and ingenuity that echo from deep time. These silent voices, painstakingly recovered from the earth, provide invaluable evidence of a complex, sustainable, and utterly sophisticated way of life that flourished in Australia for tens of thousands of years. As you continue to drift, imagine the earth beneath you, silently holding its own deep memories, waiting patiently to reveal its quiet, enduring truths. Our gentle journey has brought us through the profound historical and archaeological landscape of Australia's ancient fish traps, celebrating their ingenuity and spiritual significance. However, as our focus remains fixed on the enduring story, it's impossible to ignore a pivotal, unsettling shift that violently disrupted millennia of continuous culture: the sudden and devastating arrival of European settlement. This wasn't a slow transition, like the fading light at dusk. It was a sudden, jarring clang that echoed across the continent, reverberating through every facet of indigenous life, including the very existence and traditional practices associated with these magnificent structures. Imagine the sudden shock waves, the unimaginable disruption. For tens of thousands of years, Aboriginal communities had lived in a delicate, symbiotic relationship with their country. Their societies, built on intricate laws, kinship systems, and sustainable practices, like those precisely managed fish traps, were finely tuned to the land's rhythms. Then, almost overnight from a geological perspective, everything changed. European arrivals, with fundamentally different concepts of land ownership, resource exploitation, and social structure, imposed their will with brutal efficiency. It was less like inviting a new neighbor over, and more like an asteroid hitting your perfectly landscaped garden. The impact on traditional practices was immediate and severe. Take the fish traps. For communities whose food security, cultural identity, and spiritual connection were intricately bound to these sites, the new reality was catastrophic. Land was declared terra nullius, land belonging to no one, a legal fiction that ignored tens of thousands of years of sophisticated custodianship. Aboriginal people were dispossessed, forcibly removed from their ancestral lands, or restricted to missions and reserves. This meant being cut off from their fishing traps, their hunting grounds, their ceremonial sites. An authoritative historical fact here underscores the brutal efficiency of this displacement. Early colonial expansion, driven by pastoral and agricultural ambitions, often deliberately targeted productive indigenous lands, including waterways crucial for traditional fishing practices. Records show settlers claiming prime river frontages that had historically sustained Aboriginal communities, effectively dispossessing them of their most vital food sources, often under armed guard or with the direct support of colonial authorities. Beyond the physical displacement, there was a deliberate attempt to dismantle indigenous cultures and languages, viewing them as primitive and needing to be civilized. Children, the carriers of future generations of knowledge, were forcibly removed from their families as part of the Stolen Generations policies, aimed at assimilation. Imagine trying to pass on the complex knowledge of seasonal fish migrations and trap maintenance to children who had been taken far away, punished for speaking their own language. It was a calculated attack on the very arteries of cultural transmission. Historians still debate the extent to which these actions were motivated by conscious maliciousness versus a profound lack of understanding and deeply ingrained racial superiority, though the outcome was devastating regardless. Was it malice, or just sheer ignorance that turned a working fishing industry into a pile of abandoned rocks? The direct consequences for the fish traps were varied but consistently negative. Without constant communal maintenance, some structures simply fell into disrepair, reclaimed by the silting rivers or the relentless tides. Others were deliberately damaged by settlers who saw them as obstructions to navigation or a hindrance to new forms of land use. Imagine someone building a perfectly functional bridge, only for newcomers to come along and chop down the supporting beams because they wanted to float their rubber ducky unobstructed. A bit of an extreme example, but you get the drift. New forms of fishing and farming, often unsustainable and alien to the landscape, were introduced, further disrupting the ecological balance. The social and cultural ramifications were devastating. The loss of access to the traps, which were not just food sources, but central to ceremony, law, and identity, contributed to a profound spiritual and social dislocation. Imagine having your entire history book erased, your family photographs burnt, and your connection to your home severed. It was not just loss of food, but loss of meaning, loss of belonging. The very fabric of society frayed under the immense pressure. It's a stark, somber reality to confront within our peaceful narrative, but essential for understanding the full story. The silence that fell over many of these ancient fishing grounds wasn't natural. It was enforced, a profound disruption of a harmony that had existed for tens of thousands of years. For an odd off-topic fact that, too, is a product of drastic environmental change. Did you know that the Sahara Desert was once a lush, fertile grassland? It certainly was a long time ago. Now it's one of the hottest, driest places on Earth. Such radical transformation reminds us of the delicate balance of ecosystems and how quickly they can shift. Though in the case of Australia's indigenous peoples, the shift was tragically anthropogenic. Despite the devastation, what's truly remarkable is the resilience. Despite displacement, trauma, and systemic efforts to erase their culture, Aboriginal people retained their stories, their languages, and their profound connection to country. Knowledge of the fish traps, even if they couldn't be actively used or maintained for a period, was whispered down generations, waiting for a time when it could once again resurface. The colonial arrival casts a long, painful shadow over this history, a sharp contrast to the gentle ebb and flow of tides and time. Yet the inherent strength and adaptability of the oldest continuous culture on Earth allowed the ember of ancient wisdom to smolder, even in the darkest of nights. This understanding helps us grasp why, in modern efforts at reconciliation, the revitalization of these cultural landscapes is so much more than just a historical preservation project. Having navigated the difficult truths of colonial disruption, we can now, with a renewed sense of purpose and quiet hope, turn our attention to the stirring chapters of rediscovery and revitalization. Despite the immense challenges, the lamp of knowledge never entirely extinguished. Now, with collaborative efforts blossoming between Aboriginal communities and archaeologists, conservationists, and governmental bodies, these ancient wonders are slowly re-emerging, not just as historical relics, but as powerful symbols of enduring culture, resilience, and a future built on shared respect. Imagine, if you will, the silent perseverance of stories. Even when communities were dispossessed or policies actively suppressed cultural practices, the knowledge of the fish traps, their locations, their sacred significance, the engineering principles behind them, was never truly lost. It lived on, often whispered quietly from elders to younger generations, passed down through the unbreakable thread of oral tradition. This sustained knowledge, sometimes lying dormant, patiently awaiting its moment to resurface, is itself an extraordinary feat of cultural endurance. It's like a seed that has waited centuries to sprout, perfectly preserved in the deepest soil. The spark of rediscovery often comes from this deep well of indigenous knowledge. Traditional owners, armed with the precise locations passed down by their ancestors, are guiding archaeologists to sites that had previously been overlooked or misunderstood by colonial surveyors. An authoritative historical fact underscoring this vital collaboration: the UNESCO World Heritage listing of the Budj Bim cultural landscape, a sophisticated aquaculture system managed by the Gunditj Mara people, was primarily driven by their continuous cultural connection to the site and the tireless efforts of elders and community members in sharing their ancestral knowledge. It is a living example of how Indigenous insights are leading global recognition of Australia's deep history, reversing generations of misunderstanding. These modern efforts are about far more than just preserving old rocks. They are about cultural resurgence, a reclamation of heritage, and a powerful act of self-determination. For Aboriginal people, reconnecting with these sites means reconnecting with their ancestors, their law, and their country. It's about healing historical wounds and reinforcing identity. Imagine finding long-lost photographs of your family, vibrant and alive, telling stories you had only vaguely heard about. That's the emotional depth of this rediscovery. The revitalization process itself is often a delicate blend of traditional knowledge and contemporary conservation methods. It might involve physically repairing damaged sections of the traps, carefully replacing stones according to ancestral designs. Archaeologists contribute their expertise in dating and mapping, providing precise data without disturbing the site's integrity. Engineers might assist in understanding the long-term hydrological stability of ancient systems, but always under the guidance of traditional owners, ensuring cultural protocols are meticulously followed. This is archaeology that serves community, not just academia, where community control over their heritage is paramount. It's a respectful dialogue between different ways of knowing and being, unlike that one family dinner where everyone is shouting over each other, thinking their anecdote is the most important. These revitalization projects also serve as powerful educational platforms. They provide opportunities for younger generations within Aboriginal communities to learn hands-on from their elders, cementing the practical knowledge of the traps. They also offer crucial insights for the broader Australian public and international visitors, fostering a deeper understanding of Aboriginal history, sophistication, and enduring connection to country. Seeing these ancient structures come back to life, understanding their millennia of purpose, can dramatically shift perspectives about Australia's past and present. It challenges long-held colonial narratives and introduces a much richer, more nuanced understanding of this ancient land. The gentle re-engagement with these sites sometimes brings unexpected benefits. Renewed care and management can also lead to ecological recovery within the surrounding ecosystems. Returning to traditional burning practices or managing water flow based on ancestral knowledge can improve the health of the land and water, showing that these places are not just cultural treasures, but environmental lessons waiting to be relearned. Historians still debate the most effective models for truly equitable partnership between Indigenous communities and academic or government institutions in the ongoing custodianship and interpretation of these heritage sites. It's not always an easy path. Questions of power, intellectual property, and genuine sharing of authority require constant, careful negotiation and open communication. Can different cultures truly walk hand in hand towards a shared understanding? Or will there always be subtle biases to overcome? Perhaps it's a bit like learning to dance tango with someone who has only ever waltzed. It takes patience, communication, and a willingness to learn new steps together. An odd, off-topic fact that might tickle your fancy in this gentle drift. Did you know that snails can sleep for up to 3 years? Imagine being a snail, sleeping through colonial arrival and rediscovery. You'd wake up, look around, and probably be very confused about where all the old fish were. Luckily, the human journey is much more active and conscious, constantly moving towards understanding. These acts of rediscovery and revitalization are powerful demonstrations of cultural resilience and human reconciliation. They remind us that the deepest histories are often those that whisper from the earth, guided by the living voices of those who have held their memories sacred through the longest night. As the images of these ancient, revitalized traps swim through your mind, know that they are not just fading echoes, but vibrant, living heartbeats of a culture that continues to thrive, proving that true history is never truly buried. It waits for the respectful ear to listen. As our gentle historical current flows into this quiet section, we finally acknowledge the profound global significance of Australia's ancient Aboriginal fish traps, a recognition that resonates far beyond the continent's shores. This isn't just local history anymore, it's world heritage. The UNESCO World Heritage listing of sites like the Budj Bim Cultural Landscape, home to the Gunditj Mara people's extensive aquaculture systems, marks a monumental shift in understanding and respect for Indigenous ingenuity worldwide. It places these ancient Australian achievements on the same global pedestal as the pyramids of Egypt, the Great Wall of China, or the Roman Colosseum, not just as architectural wonders, but as living landscapes of profound cultural and historical importance. Imagine that quiet feeling of validation, a universal nod of recognition to knowledge and practices that have often been marginalized or ignored by Western narratives for too long. For decades, the dominant historical perspective focused almost exclusively on European discovery and settlement. The UNESCO listing represents a powerful recalibration, formally recognizing that Australia boasts some of the oldest, most complex, and enduring examples of human innovation on Earth. It says, unequivocally, that ancient Aboriginal people were not just surviving in the landscape. They were actively shaping it, managing its resources with a sophistication that rivals and often surpasses that of their contemporaries on other continents. It's like discovering your quiet, unassuming grandmother actually ran a secret international spy network for decades. A very impressive surprise. An authoritative historical fact that concretely embodies this global significance. The Budj Bim Cultural Landscape in Victoria, Australia, was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2019. This listing specifically recognizes the immense antiquity and exceptional engineering of the Gunditjmara people's aquaculture system, which diverted water and managed eel runs over thousands of years, as a prime example of human interaction with the environment and a site of outstanding universal value. It highlights the technological brilliance and the unique cultural connection of Aboriginal people to their country. The outstanding universal value is key. It means that these sites possess such profound cultural or natural significance that they transcend national boundaries and are of common importance for present and future generations of all humanity. So, your ancestors might have been building mud huts, or herding goats, or inventing incredibly intricate bureaucratic systems, but concurrently, on the other side of the world, people were designing sophisticated hydrological systems that worked continuously for 6,000 years, producing food for large, settled populations. It's a remarkable testament to the diverse paths of human development, reminding us that genius blooms in many gardens, not just one. Historians still debate the best methods for translating the immense scale and temporal depth of Aboriginal cultural achievements into frameworks readily understood by a global audience, primarily familiar with European and Asian chronologies of empire and large-scale monuments. How do you convey that no single architect built this, but rather continuous multi-generational collaboration spanning over 200 human lifespans? This global recognition provides immense support for the protection and management of these sites. It brings international attention and often crucial funding, aiding in the collaborative efforts we touched upon earlier. Archaeological investigation, restoration, and most importantly, cultural heritage management, led by the traditional owners themselves. It amplifies their voices on the world stage, ensuring that future generations worldwide understand and appreciate this profound history. It shifts the narrative from colonial novelty to ancient masterpiece, firmly cementing Indigenous Australians as pioneers in global civilization. Imagine explaining to someone that your quiet, seemingly ordinary pond is actually a thousands of years old food production system, and then they tell you it's just as important as the Great Wall of China. You'd probably need to sit down for a moment. The process of gaining World Heritage status often involves rigorous scientific assessment combined with deep engagement with the traditional owners, gathering both archaeological evidence and comprehensive oral histories. It's a powerful blending of Western and Indigenous knowledge systems, creating a holistic picture of universal significance. This careful and respectful collaboration is as significant as the listing itself, proving that genuine partnerships can yield incredible results. An odd off-topic fact that makes you ponder universal concepts. Did you know that outer space isn't completely empty? It contains sparse particles of gas, dust, plasma, and various forms of radiation. So it's more of a very, very, very thin soup than absolute nothingness. Kind of like this conversation, which, while meant to bore you to sleep, isn't entirely empty of intriguing little tidbits, is it? Ultimately, the global recognition of Australia's ancient fishing traps, exemplified by UNESCO listings, serves as a beacon. It illuminates the vastness and sophistication of Aboriginal heritage, challenges simplistic and often derogatory historical narratives, and inspires greater understanding and respect for Indigenous cultures globally. It also highlights critical lessons about sustainable living, resource management, and profound human-environment interaction, lessons that are more urgent and relevant than ever in our rapidly changing world. As the last embers of conscious thought flicker and soften, allow yourself to marvel at the quiet triumph of ancient wisdom gaining its rightful, globally acknowledged place. This understanding should carry you to a truly peaceful and knowing rest. As our tranquil historical current guides you gently through the landscape of time, having now grasped the global recognition bestowed upon Australia's ancient fish traps, let's pivot to a crucial yet surprisingly calming thought. These enduring structures, silent witnesses to millennia of human ingenuity, aren't merely relics of a bygone era. No, they carry within their very stones timeless wisdom, offering profound sustainable lessons for contemporary environmental challenges. It's as if an ancient grandparent, far removed from our bustling modern lives, holds the quiet answer to many of our loudest problems. Imagine for a moment the environmental dilemmas facing our world today: resource depletion, climate change, biodiversity loss, the desperate search for truly sustainable food systems. Our modern solutions often lean on complex, high-tech, and energy-intensive interventions. Yet here, thousands of years ago, were societies that mastered food security and resource management with what appears to be effortless simplicity, powered by natural forces and profound understanding. This was an original model of what we now call eco-engineering, or permaculture, only without the need for fancy academic terms or grant applications. They just did it. One of the foremost lessons gleaned from these ancient traps is the power of working with nature, not against it. Unlike intensive industrial fishing, which often strips marine environments bare with vast nets and aggressive tactics, these traps operated on passive principles. They leveraged natural hydrological processes, the ebb and flow of tides, the seasonal rise and fall of rivers, to harvest resources in a gentle, predictable manner. They collected fish rather than pursuing them. This low-impact approach minimized ecosystem disturbance, allowed for natural replenishment of fish stocks, and required very little energy expenditure from the human participants beyond the initial construction and regular maintenance. It's a paradigm shift from dominate and extract to observe and participate. Imagine a car that drives itself perfectly using only the wind. Now scale that to an entire food production system, an authoritative historical fact underscoring this sustainability. The consistent use and productivity of fish traps at sites like Brew Arena for tens of thousands of years, alongside the equally long-lived aquaculture at Buj Bim, 6,600 plus years, unequivocally demonstrate continuous, multi-millennial sustainable resource management. This contrasts starkly with modern industrial agricultural and fishing practices that frequently deplete resources within decades, proving that deep historical examples of harmonious human-environment interactions exist and provide viable templates. They literally outlasted empires and ice ages, a remarkable feat our modern food systems often struggle to replicate, even for a few decades. Furthermore, the wisdom encoded in these systems highlights the importance of deep, place-based ecological knowledge. These ancient peoples didn't apply a universal solution. Remember the diverse designs we explored earlier? Riverine, estuarine, temporary floodplain? Each trap was a bespoke response to its unique local environment, accounting for specific fish migrations, water dynamics, and available materials. This hyperlocal approach, attuned to specific bioregions, offers a profound lesson in developing resilient food systems that truly fit their local context, rather than imposing standardized, unsustainable practices. It's like custom tailoring a suit perfectly to one person, instead of expecting a single, ready-made size to fit everyone. A recipe for both sustainability and, frankly, better-looking clothes. The communal aspect of these traps also holds significant lessons. Their construction and continuous maintenance were collective efforts, requiring cooperation, shared responsibility, and intergenerational knowledge transfer. This fostered strong community bonds and ensured long-term care of a vital shared resource. In a world increasingly fragmented by individualism, these ancient practices remind us that sustainable living is often a community effort, a shared responsibility rather than an individual burden. Historians still debate the specific methods used to ensure the continuation of complex oral knowledge and community protocols over thousands of years for these specific fish trap systems. Whether memory aids, specific ceremonial cycles, or strict disciplinary practices were primarily responsible for such a successful transfer of information through time. Perhaps they simply wrote it down on very, very durable rocks in a secret unspoken language? The idea of food security was built into these systems, but not in the modern sense of maximizing yield at all costs. It was about reliable yield, a predictable source of nourishment that supported population growth without compromising the natural environment. The deliberate allowance for juvenile fish to escape, for instance, is a profound example of long-term thinking, a strategic investment in future generations and ecological health. This stands in stark contrast to today's short-term economic gains, often prioritizing immediate profit over planetary well-being. It's the ultimate long game, played out with patience and foresight that transcends centuries. You might wonder if they simply had better napping techniques for contemplation, aiding long-term strategic planning. And for an odd, off-topic fact that might make you think about very efficient natural systems. Did you know that the entire Amazon rainforest breathes in billions of tons of carbon dioxide and exhales oxygen daily, making it literally the lungs of our planet? It's another natural wonder demonstrating scale and inherent environmental genius, just like these ancient fish traps were ingenious localized examples of human interaction within ecosystems, helping them to breathe efficiently too. As the quiet settles in around you, let these profound lessons seep into your subconscious. The gentle power of observation, the wisdom of working with nature, the strength of communal cooperation, and the enduring vision of multi-generational sustainability. These are not quaint historical footnotes. They are potent guiding principles for our own future. The ancient Aboriginal fishing traps whisper a clear message. Harmony with our environment isn't an impossible dream of the past, but a tested, proven path that we can, and must, re-embrace. Their silent strength provides the most profound, and perhaps the sleepiest, of revelations. That some of the biggest challenges of the modern world might find their simplest answers embedded in the very deepest parts of human history. And so, our long, gentle current through the quiet depths of Australia's ancient history comes softly to its close. We've drifted from the bustling shores of modern thought, past the colossal, intricate stone labyrinths, powered by the rhythmic breath of the tides, through the tapestry of daily life, collective labor, and profound cultural significance. We've uncovered silent archaeological whispers and confronted the jarring shock of colonial disruption, only to emerge into the light of rediscovery, world recognition, and the timeless, invaluable lessons these enduring wonders offer. As your awareness softly blurs around the edges, settle into the quiet understanding that the story of Australia's early Aboriginal fishing traps is not a mere collection of facts, but a deeply resonant echo of humanity's enduring connection to the earth. These weren't simply engineering marvels. They were extensions of a profound worldview, a living testament to a people who saw their world not as something to be conquered, but as country, alive with spirit, story, and reciprocal obligation. Every stone and every trap held a whisper of ancestral hands, a murmur of ancient songs, a quiet reaffirmation of respect for the environment that provided sustenance for millennia. Imagine this profound knowledge, patiently cultivated over tens of thousands of years, settling into your mind as you drift deeper into rest. Think about the sheer depth of time we've gently explored tonight. When the Egyptian pharaohs were just contemplating their monumental tombs, and Stonehenge was barely a gleam in an ancient eye, people in Australia were already perfecting aquaculture on an astounding scale, their ingenious designs standing against the relentless forces of nature. Their communities were thriving, building a life not of scarcity and constant struggle, but of abundance and leisure, underpinned by sustainable practices that secured the future as effectively as they harvested the present. It offers a counter-narrative to so much of what we often assume about ancient human development. A sophisticated, sedentary life emerging not from conquest and agriculture of dry land, but from the clever harnessing of aquatic bounty. This deep history reminds us that there are many paths to sophistication and success, many ways to dance harmoniously with our world. The quiet resilience inherent in this story is perhaps the most profound takeaway. Despite immense disruption, dispossession, and calculated attempts at cultural erasure, the knowledge, the connection, and indeed, many of the very structures themselves, endured. They whispered through generations, survived neglect and destruction, and are now re-emerging, guided by the very people whose ancestors first built them. This revitalization is more than just historical preservation. It is a powerful act of cultural resurgence, a reclamation of identity, and a quiet beacon of hope. It reminds us that truth, connection, and profound wisdom are never truly lost, only sometimes forgotten, patiently waiting for the moment they can resurface, often through the very patient voices of elders. These ancient structures, born from immense human effort and incredible environmental sensitivity, are teaching us now what they taught thousands of years ago, that a truly harmonious and sustainable future lies in observing, respecting, and working with the planet's natural rhythms. They were, and still are, elegant solutions to fundamental human needs, powered by the immense, subtle energy of nature and profound human foresight, all achieved with a quiet grace that transcends the frantic pace of our modern world. No fossil fuels, no artificial fertilizers, no genetic modifications, just ancient understanding and careful custodianship. It makes you reconsider where true innovation really lies, doesn't it? Maybe it's not always in the loudest, brightest, newest things, but in the deepest, oldest, quietest wisdom. Historians continue to consider how lessons from Aboriginal sustainable land and water management can best be integrated into contemporary conservation and environmental policies, bridging millennia of wisdom with modern challenges, truly blending two very different temporal realities into one holistic approach for a better future. It's a bridge being built across a vast river of time, stone by ancient stone. For one last odd, off-topic thought that might gently lead you to rest. Did you know that your own body creates enough heat in 30 minutes to boil half a gallon of water? So, as you snuggle deeper into your bed, remember you are, in essence, a perfectly calibrated, quiet, living boiler, radiating gentle warmth into the night. So, let the gentle echoes of these ancient places, the quiet hum of enduring culture, and the profound wisdom of sustainable living seep into your subconscious tonight. Imagine the stars wheeling above, just as they did for those ancient builders, and feel the silent strength of the earth beneath you. Let the steady rhythm of history carry you, soft and unhurried, into a deeply peaceful and well-earned slumber. Good night.